Have you ever wondered why you feel exhausted after a mundane social gathering? Why does the chatter of others, their automatic jokes, their rituals of friendliness, seem more like a puppet show than a meeting of souls? No, you're not wrong. You're sober at a drunken dansan that condemns you to exile. But tell me, is it really a condemnation, or a privilege? Free spirit, you've learned to pretend. You've learned to smile when you want to shut up, to agree when everything inside you screams no. You watch, in silence, this pathetic theater where everyone wants to be seen, but no one wants to see, and inside, an uncomfortable question grows. Why can't I belong? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, why do you still want to belong? Social life, as we know it, is a negotiation of masks, a silent pact where everyone abdicates their own truth in exchange for acceptance. And you, you are too dangerous for these pacts. Dangerous because you are not satisfied with the veneer of appearances, because you cannot stand the tedium of programmed dialogue. Your contempt is not arrogance, it is lucidity. You believe there is something wrong with you because you do not feel pleasure where others revel. But the error lies in the diagnosis. What you experience is not a flaw, it is a symptom of a spirit that does not bow down. The weak call it introversion, antisocial, even arrogance. I call it purity of instinct. The herd gathers because it fears silence. The strong isolate themselves because silence is their temple. See, from an early age, you were conditioned to believe that the value of your existence depended on the recognition of others. Be sociable, participate, don't be weird. Each of these phrases was a nail in the coffin of your uniqueness. You were taught to fear the judgment of others, as if the opinion of a mediocre mind could be measured by anything. But tell me, how many of those you try to please are worthy of your truth? There is a hidden violence in human coexistence, the violence of having to fit in. True intelligence, the kind that hurts, that pierces, that illuminates like lightning, doesn't fit, it overflows. And that's why it makes people uncomfortable. You don't care about social life, not because you're incapable, but because you've seen its emptiness up close. Because you know the cost of conforming. Because you know that in many conversations, silence would have been more honest. But be careful. Don't glorify your loneliness as a pedestal. Don't confuse contempt for banality with contempt for humanity. The superior spirit isolates itself, yes, but not to escape. It isolates itself to gestate, to sharpen its thinking, to forge its spirit, to prepare for the leap. The cave is not the destination, it is the womb of transmutation. I'll say more. Your difficulty with social life is not a curse, but a door to the creation of your own way of being in the world, of a lifestyle that does not bow to the expectations of the herd. You are condemned to be free, and that is the most beautiful condemnation there is. You've tried to be normal. I know, you tried to fit in, to be pleasant, to participate in parties, to laugh at unfunny jokes. But with each attempt, something inside you died. An inexplicable discomfort grew. It's because your spirit is too big to fit into this theater. And now, finally, the truth begins to emerge. You weren't made to fit. You were made to overflow. But be careful. Social life will still try to seduce you. It will use the language of guilt, inadequacy, longing. It will use the image of the happy life shared on social media, laughter, hugs, selfies, as a weapon. And if you're not awake, if you forget who you are, you'll bend over again. You'll go back to begging for belonging at tables where there was never any bread for you. Most people live for the gaze of others. That's why they become predictable, manipulable, empty. They are puppets that only move when the audience applauds. And you, for refusing to play this game, for not allowing yourself to be tamed, come to be seen as strange, cold, selfish. But, I ask you, since when is integrity a flaw? The truth is that the intelligent, the profound, the creative, they don't need the crowd to feel real. They are enough. Not out of pride, but out of fulfillment. And that is the greatest heresy one can commit in a society founded on the addiction to external validation. Yes, true intelligence isolates, not because it repels others, but because it sees through them. It sees hidden motivations, power games, emotional fraud. Where the naive sees sympathy, the lucid see manipulation. Where the foolish see friendship, the alert see a social contract. And that is exhausting. But make no mistake, there are others like you. Others who also walk on the edge, who also burn in silence. And you will recognize each other not by words, but by the intensity of your gaze, by the silence that does not oppress, but welcomes, by mutual respect for the freedom to be, and it is to these that you must join. Not in empty gatherings, but in rare, sincere, creative encounters. Social life as it is, that machine of repetition and conformity, does not deserve your presence, but the meeting of two free spirits. Art. That is sacred. That is why I invite you. Don't run away from your nature anymore. Don't apologize for being too intense, too deep, too silent. The surface is for shipwrecked people. You were born to dive. You don't care about social life because you're tired of swimming in puddles. What you want is the ocean. And the ocean is not a place to party, it's a place to cross. You have learnt to call shyness what is actually spiritual revulsion. They called lack of sociability what is simply high discernment. They diagnosed you with a deficit of mundane enthusiasm, when what you have is a surplus of consciousness. What the world cannot tolerate in you, free spirit, is this ability to see through things, to hear the false melody in enthusiastic conversations, to notice the despair behind the laughter, to realize that behind "let's go out and have fun" lies an unnamed anguish, a fear of emptiness. But why does this hurt you so much? Because since birth you have been taught to seek belonging, not truth. You have learned to ask yourself, how can I please others, instead of what is authentic? The herd instinct was injected into your flesh as an antidote to greatness. School rewarded conformity. Your family taught you to be polite. Society domesticated your spirit so that you would fit into a cell called society. That cell has cushions, but it's still a cell. You felt it at your first parties, in your first conversations, where your soul wanted to scream while your mouth smiled, and you kept quiet. You adapted, because the fear of rejection is powerful, because the herd instinct still roars in your bones, because you still believe that being with many was better than being whole. But now enough is enough. Enough of bargaining your depth for company. Enough of trading your lucidity for acceptance. You begin to remember who you are and who you never were. You are not misunderstood. You are incomprehensible to those who only live on the surface. You are not lonely. You are demanding. You are not difficult. You are rare. And do you know why you can't stand social life anymore? Because it has been hijacked by herd morality. Because it has become a court of appearances. Because words no longer serve to reveal, but to disguise. Because where there should be encounter, there is performance. Where there should be fruitful silence, there is hysterical noise. The truth, my friend, is that most people don't find themselves when they get together. They lose themselves. The crowd is not addition, it is subtraction. You dissolve into little nothings. You become a mirror of others. You abandon yourself, and you come home tired, empty, without knowing why. But now you know. Your soul refuses to be prostituted for sympathy. The social life you reject is the same one that rewards mediocrity with popularity, that celebrates noise as if it were joy, that turns authenticity into eccentricity and loneliness into illness, that makes you feel guilty for preferring a book to a party, a deep thought to trivial conversation. They taught you to distrust your own taste because your taste doesn't match the hysteria of the collective. But let's go deeper. What is the source of this discomfort? Where does this gap between who you are and who they expect you to be come from? It stems from the genealogy of morality. Yes, from the age-old process that turned strength into sin, greatness into pride, depth into strangeness. The strong have always walked alone. The creators, the visionaries, the tragic figures, all were called crazy before they were recognized as necessary. And you, you are a descendant of these loners. But you don't yet know what to do with this legacy. The herd mentality, which venerates docility and familiarity, looks with fear at anything that stands out. That is why it pathologizes greatness. It labels silence as depression, introspection as weakness, refusal as deviation. And you believed it. For a while, you believed it. You thought there was something wrong with you for not wanting the same crumbs, for not getting excited about the same distractions. But now you're starting to suspect. What if the disease wasn't in you, but in the world? You begin to realize that your supposed indifference is not an absence of feeling, it is an excess of demand. That your aversion to socializing is not selfishness, it is protection. You don't want less connection, you want more truth. And where there is no truth, your soul withers. That's why the herd rejects you, because you are an uncomfortable reminder of everything they have repressed. Your silent presence is a mirror that reveals the falseness of bonds, the superficiality of interactions, the death of instincts, and they call you cold. But it's just that you've stopped pretending to be warm where there is only calculation. Now listen carefully. This apparent coldness is your armor. It protects the fire that still burns, the fire of creation, of rebellion, of the will to power. You don't want life as it is. You want life as a work of art, as an affirmation, as the aesthetics of the tragic. And for that, you need to step away. Not forever, but for as long as necessary. Solitude is the desert of the Creator, the womb of metamorphosis. The higher spirit is not formed at parties, but in storms. It is not born of applause, but of rejection. And the more you are rejected by the ordinary world, the closer you will be to your truth. Make no mistake, this isolation is the battlefield. It is where you encounter the demons that distract others. It is where you hear the muffled cries of the soul. It is where you bear yourself and recreate yourself. But there is a risk, a real risk. The risk of confusing escape with choice, of using lucidity as an alibi for cowardice, of turning contempt for the herd into an excuse for inaction. Healthy isolation is that which prepares you to leap, not that which justifies stagnation. So, I ask you now, what are you doing with your solitude? Are you using it as an excuse not to commit to your greatness? Or are you forging the sword with which you will cut the bonds of mediocrity? If you just walk away but don't transform yourself, then your loneliness is nihilism, it is decay, it is resentment. But if it makes you stronger, clearer, fiercer, then you are on the right path. The path of the Creator. The social indifference of the elevated spirit is not apathy, it is focus. It is not coldness, it is selectivity. It is not misanthropy, it is love of truth. And truth, as you know, is rarely popular. So, free spirit, accept your isolation, embrace it, chew on it, burn yourself on it. And when the time is right, when your cup is full, come back, but not as someone who needs to. Come back as someone who overflows. And then, when you speak, others will fall silent, because behind your silence there will be thunder, and your presence, once invisible, will be impossible to ignore. You say you don't care about social life. Did you prefer silence, solitude, reading, thinking? But tell me honestly, cruelly, is this refusal, freedom, or escape? Is it affirmation, or disguised resentment? Do you isolate yourself because you don't need others, or because you fear being seen? How many times has your indifference been just a mask for your wounds? How many times has this contempt for bonds hidden a deep thirst to be understood? Don't lie to yourself. Saying you don't need anyone can be the most sophisticated way of crying out for love. You say you're strong, but you tremble at the possibility of rejection. You say you're self-sufficient, but you stare at your phone waiting for an invitation that never comes. You pride yourself on being lonely, but you resent the world for not recognizing you. Well, we've reached the heart of the matter. The place where your indifference is just a defense, a shield against the humiliation of not being wanted, against the memory of childhood when you were already too different, against that party where you stood in the corner, like a ghost, while everyone else seemed to understand each other in a language you never spoke. Your lucidity is real, but your pride uses it as armor. And I ask you, why do you need to arm yourself so much? What is inside you that you fear being touched? You shy away from superficial conversations. Yes, but what about real conversations? The ones that require commitment, presence, vulnerability. When was the last time you looked someone in the eye without filtering, without running away, without calculating? You protect yourself so much from the stupidity of others that you forgot to protect yourself from your own cowardice. Let's go deeper. What if your intelligence is just the way you found to justify your relational impotence? What if this contempt for the collective is the desperate cry of someone who couldn't bear to be ignored by it? You talk like a free spirit, but you act like someone who is still waiting for an apology from the world. And that, my friend, is not freedom, it is imprisonment. A golden prison, yes, adorned with books, profound thoughts, and elegant silence, but still a cell. So I ask you, and I will not accept evasive answers, why do you hide? Why must your greatness always be silent? What good is your lucidity if it does not translate into a presence in the world? You say that others don't understand you, but have you ever tried to make yourself understood, or have you just taken refuge in contempt? Have you ever looked someone in the eye and said, "This is who I am," or did you just walk away before they could see you fully? When did you decide that you didn't need anyone else? And what led you to that conclusion? These questions are daggers, but you need to bleed. You need to open the wounds you've covered with theories. Because only when pain is named does it transform into strength. Only when the wound is exposed can it heal as a sacred scar, not as a ghost. Now listen, there is no shame in wanting connection. There is no weakness in wanting to be seen. The problem is not the desire, it is the price you are willing to pay for it. You were hurt because you gave yourself to the herd, expecting truth, and the herd only offers mirrors, never eyes. You left there burned, and swore never to return. But there is another way, the way of equals, of the rare ones, of those who, like you, burn in silence. The question is not, how do I fit in, but how do I find others who also don't fit in? And here's the secret, they hide too. They also disguise their pain with phrases like, I don't need anyone. They also isolate themselves so they don't have to beg for affection, but they exist. They are out there, camouflaged as exiles, waiting, like you, for someone to say, I see you. Therefore, your mission is not to protect yourself, it is to reveal yourself. It is not to shield yourself, it is to strip yourself bare. Your strength does not lie in being inaccessible, but in being whole. Your lucidity should not be a shield, it should be a lantern dot. You are not here to preserve yourself. You are here to spend yourself, to burn, to collide with the world like an unbearable star. Loneliness was the price of your awakening, but it does not have to be your destiny. It was the bridge, not the home. And remember, what the higher spirit rejects is not the other, it is the false. It is not love, it is manipulation. It is not the bond, it is the chain. If you still feel something pulsing, something alive, something seeking, then you are not lost. You are in gestation. But beware of the comfort of the cave, of the pride of self-sufficiency. This is also a form of slavery, a slavery adorned with beautiful words, but one that still keeps you away from life. You say you don't care about social life, but what if true social life, the naked encounter, the communion without masks, the Dionysian friendship is precisely what you fear and desire most? So I challenge you, stop repeating that you don't need it. Stop justifying your isolation. With your intelligence, start living like someone who owes nothing to the world. No excuses, no explanations, no self-exile, because the true free spirit does not hide. It appears like lightning, it speaks like thunder, it loves like someone who defies the gods. You've spent too much time trying to explain your indifference, as if you needed to justify the breath of a free spirit. But there's nothing to justify. Your refusal is an affirmation, a surgical cut between what still crawls and what begins to fly. You don't avoid the world out of fear, but out of zeal. You don't mix with others out of arrogance, but out of integrity. And that silence that has cost you so much is now beginning to reveal its true function. It was a cocoon. What you are experiencing is not isolation. It is incubation. Metamorphosis requires absence, and absence requires courage. While others celebrate birthdays and accumulate contacts, you dig deep, and only those who dig find the fire. Those who live on the surface call this coldness because they cannot bear the idea that someone lives without their applause. But you begin to realize that what is inside you is not coldness, it is controlled fire. The real reason you can no longer stand ordinary social life is because you are ready to create a higher mode of existence, a mode where relationships are not performance, but creation, where encounters are not distractions, but intensifications, where love is not a contract, but a collision of powers. You begin to realize that your loneliness is fertile, that there is an energy pulsing within it, a song that only you can hear, a dance that has not yet found its rhythm, but is already demanding the stage. And here is the revelation. Your social indifference is a symptom that something new wants to be born, not just in you, but through you. A new type of human, a creator of values, a being that doesn't need frames, because it overflows the picture. A Dionysian spirit that doesn't want the peace of normality, but the intoxication of intensity. That's why a dull social life makes you nauseous, because you already know the taste of true nectar. You've tasted raw lucidity. You've smelled freedom that doesn't depend on approval. Now, all that's left for you is to create ways of being. Create ways of being. Create rare bonds. Create words that don't disguise but reveal. Create relationships that don't diminish but expand. Create silences that don't hide but shout. Create your world and offer it, not your apology, but your presence. And know this, it will require breaking things. You will be called arrogant, weird, difficult. But you already know, these words are medals. They are the price of not being domesticable. You must not adapt. You must set things on fire. You must not fit in. You must explode. You must not seek belonging. You must found a new lineage. And here is the most beautiful thing. You are not alone. Because others, in silence, are awakening. Exiled spirits, wandering through a land that no longer holds them, waiting for the sign. And you can be that sign. When you embrace your truth with strength, you free others from shame. You become a mirror for those who also burn. There is no revolution more powerful than that of an individual who refuses to betray themselves, who prefers the storm to obedience, who prefers authentic solitude to false companionship. This is the new type of human being that is now forming amid the ruins of a civilization of masks. A being who does not need crowds to exist, but who, when they appear, transforms everything. And social indifference is only the first sign of the mutation. The real impulse behind it is the will to power. You don't want to withdraw, you want to rise up. You don't want less connection, you want more truth. You don't want silence, you want a voice. But a voice that is yours, not an echo of the collective dot. So, free spirit, listen to this call. Your soul can no longer tolerate training. What pulses inside you is the desire to create a new language, a new ethic, a new aesthetic of existence. You are the laboratory of what does not yet have a name. And this creative impulse, this fever for a new world, this weariness with the old, is not a flaw. It is a harbinger, it is rupture, it is birth. So stop trying to explain your distance. Use it. Build an altar with it, a stage, a battlefield. Let your indifference transmute into work, into gesture, into a presence that disturbs but transforms. You are not here to please, you are here to set things on fire. You are not here to repeat, you are here to inaugurate. You are not here to be part of, you are here to say, after me, nothing will be the same. And that starts now. Not when the world is ready, but when you decide you can no longer wait. You are not antisocial. You are a herald of a different kind of bond. You are not out of place, you are ahead of the curve. While the world struggles with the desire to belong, you are inaugurating a new sense of belonging, not to the masses, but to your own greatness. And that is the hardest task there is, because there is no map, there is no audience, there are no guarantees, but there are also no cages. Now you understand, your indifference is not an end, it's a beginning. It's the emptying that's necessary for something greater to inhabit you. The loneliness that once hurt now pulses like fertile ground. The silence that once oppressed you now echoes like a drumbeat, announcing war. You no longer want to avoid social life, you want to create a new kind of life. One in which others are not judges, but accomplices. One in which encounters do not require masks, because both parties have already burned their skin. A kind of bond that can only exist between those who dared to destroy themselves, in order to be reborn. And you are being reborn now. You begin to understand that greatness is not built with pretty words, but with the courage to live up to yourself. That freedom is not the absence of ties, it is the absolute presence of yourself, in every choice. That true love is not born of necessity, but of overflowing abundance. The true free spirit is not the one who flees the world, it is the one who returns to the world without bowing down. That treads on common ground with uncommon intensity. That does not adapt, but imposes its form. You spent so much time trying not to get hurt, that you forgot how to hurt. And now you are beginning to remember. You are made to tear down veils, to build bridges over chasms, to breathe fire in places where everyone else only whispers. You don't want to belong. You want to set things on fire. You want to leave footprints on virgin soil. You want to die exhausted, not from coexistence, but from creation. And so now, you look at the world no longer with contempt, but with defiance. You no longer want to avoid it. You want to confront it. You no longer want to protect yourself from it. You want to corrupt it from within with your strength. Because now you know. Your loneliness was just the forge. Your true destiny is transfiguration. It is to transform this indifference into intensity, this refusal into aesthetics, this silence into new music. You are what comes after decay. You are what remains when all illusions fall. You are what rises when others sink. You are the beginning of a new genealogy, no longer of victims, but of creators. And that is what social indifference was trying to show you all along. That you are not a defect of normality. You are the harbinger of the extraordinary. You are not a lonely wanderer. You are a Zarathustra, someone who, when they walked away, did not run away, but descended. And now they return, not to fit in, but to set fire to everything, and this is your final calling. Do not accept any more relationships that force you to be less than you are, that invite you to fit in, that call you difficult when you are only demanding the truth. The life you want and deserve is not found at parties, dinners, or polite conversations. It is found in the sweat of creating an existence that no one else dared to live, in the pleasure of loving without training, in the risk of being seen without a mask, in dancing with those rare individuals who, like you, also burn inside. This is your task, your cross, your stage, your altar. Don't worry if they don't understand you yet. You're not here to be understood, you're here to be impossible to ignore. And when they ask why you don't participate, don't mix, don't show up. Tell them the truth, the naked, cruel, sacred truth, because I don't belong to what is yet, I belong to what is not yet born. Now go, get out of the cave, step into the world with your own footprints. And when you find other exiles, other indomitable spirits, look them in the eye and say, you are not alone. The revolution has begun. And now, free spirit, if this script spoke to your pain, your power, your overflowing loneliness, leave your cry of rebellion in the comments below. A phrase, a sentence, an act of presence. Show that you are alive, because when the rare ones reveal themselves, the world is never the same again.